Welcome to the Law of One. Working with desires. The mind is a powerful thing. Speaking not simply of the brain, but of consciousness. But if our thinking directs our experience, how do we get into the process of thinking to work with it? One great key is desire. Most of our thinking is geared to what we desire and how to pursue that which we desire. Those of QO say, gazing at the nature of your density, we may safely remark that desire is the fuel that runs the engine of your illusion, both the portion which is shadow and that portion which is form. That is to say that desire is intrinsic to the awareness of being individuated. Desire is inherent in a consciousness of the self and the not-self. Whether it be wise or foolish, profitable or unfortunate to desire, those enjoying incarnation within your density will experience the proceeding and issuing forth of desires. Our instinct and desire for spiritual evolution is as inevitable a force as our instinct for self-preservation and evolution as a physical being. When we focus on our thoughts, we can easily find desire in them. They range from the inferior desires of the moment to the most deeply felt hungers of our souls. I just returned home from a Holy Week service, and my trip held several times of desire for some slow stopping on the expressway to move over so I could get on to church and then get back home. At the same time, what drove me out into the traffic was the hunger and thirst for worship. As a guest at our meditation said last Sunday, Jesus went through this just once, but Christians go through the steps to the cross every year. To me, the path is one steepled in devotion. As I spend time with this beautiful soul who wished only to do his Father's will, I gladly take the time away from all else to capture these bittersweet moments of my own truth. Am I the person with the lead foot on the expressway, or a seeker after the divine? Both of these and a good deal more besides. And so are we all. One way to see into the working of desire is to ask oneself, is this a preference or an addiction? This is a concept offered by Kin in his Handbook to Higher Consciousness. Those of QO talk about this. Desires in and of themselves are neither bad nor good. They simply are things which create a bias. If one moves too far along that route of desire, the bias becomes an addiction. So in many ways, the too rambunctious of desires of the somewhat less evolved person may be seen to be of an addictive quality. The feeling is, if I have this, I will be all right. If I do not have this, I shall not be all right. The author Kin encourages the addict to downgrade that addiction to preference. One can say, I prefer that this thing happen in this way, but I am not addicted to it. It is not necessary. This, too, in its own way, is a key, for when you look at desire with the conscious mind, it is difficult to see what that energy is. But you will find that there are addictions in the personality, just as there are in the eating foodstuffs, and certainly life becomes a more, shall we say, comfortable illusion when one is able to see clearly one's preferences. This helped me recently when I discovered I was starting to add pounds again, and without eating an iota more than I ever had. Change of life, in my case, was also a series of changes in the way my body treats food. I let this weight gain go on for the last 6 years, feeling that the weight gave me sturdiness. I felt stronger and more vibrant. My husband continued to like my looks. I was a happy, big woman, and increasingly slowly, but surely, but as my weight spiraled beyond plumpness, it began to bring with it a mounting list of serious troubles: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, complaining spine, hips, knees, and feet. I decided to lose weight. My doctor has spelled it out for me. No matter how little I was eating, that amount was now too much. He was, in fact, of the general opinion that older women don't need food at all, as long as they take their vitamins and drink fruit juices. He ran down the simple fact that the only way we gain weight is if we are taking in more calories than we are using. So I worked with my concept of nutrition a lot, downgrading quantity, removing some food groups from my diet almost completely, upgrading the taste of things, really tasting and appreciating each bite. At this point, I believe I can honestly say that my desire to see myself in a healthier and lighter body mode outweighs my desire to eat. I have cut my portions to about half what they were. I still love to eat and relish every savory taste and texture, but I have managed to detach myself from old habits that were not working and form new ones. Over the course of writing this handbook, I have gone back to the weight I carried for my first 30 years of adulthood. If no one but my doctor ever notices this, I will be perfectly satisfied. I am doing it for myself, so I may stay in this shadow world that is so dear to me a little longer and enjoy the party. All this is by way of saying that we can work with our desires, not by extirpating them or eschewing what we love completely, but by reworking our ways so that we and they are more skillful. Square off with one fact: we will get what we desire. This density is constructed so that the soul is not finished with it until he or she has experienced all things he or she wished to experience. Consequently, be very careful what you desire. Be cautious and careful in your wishes, your hopes, and your desires, for you do inevitably set in motion those things which will occur in order that your hopes may be fulfilled. You shall not hope in vain, but if you hope without depth, without heart, then what you receive shall be shallow and unsatisfying. One goal in this way of working is to begin to see into uplifting or tuning our desires. Don is asking about the practice of the initiate spending time down in the resonating chamber of the Great Pyramid as he touches on this. Questioner: could I make the analogy of, in this apparent death, of losing the desires that are the illusionary, common desires of third density and gaining desires of total service to others. I am Ra. You are perceptive. This was the purpose and intent of this chamber, as well as forming a necessary portion of the King's Chamber position's effectiveness. Those of QO give a quick summation of lower and higher desires. Whether a seeker decides to get this car or that computer or that larger tent in a very important way makes almost no difference in the spiritual life of the seeker that makes these choices. But when you move into the area of desires for qualities, for truth, for higher spiritual capacity, then you are beginning to work with desires that are very helpful in terms of acceleration of your spiritual self. This movement is what we hope for and what we strive for as well. We encourage each to desire only the most high truth, to desire far beyond that which can be stated or imagined. For as you seek, as your thirst is expressed in the outstretched call of soul to all that resonates with it, so is attracted to that entity ministers of light, shall we say, drawn to you justly and appropriately and in accordance with that which you have desired. Therefore, lift your desires ever higher. Seek to know that truth and real identity which is your identity. He who can vibrate with this desire is moving as quickly as possible along the trail of the pilgrim. Temper my spirit, O Lord, keep it long in the fire, make it one with the flame. Let it share that upreaching desire. Words to a favorite hymn of mine. In this sense, to desire is to fall in love. What is the process of desiring? One perhaps could describe desire as a falling in love with. Certainly, the desires of the heart are deeply felt and etched with the pen of love. The yearning for that centered, flowing, effortless living which each seeker has experienced at certain times is constant, and sometimes nearly overwhelming. How the seeker yearns to feel wholly connected with the well springs of life, light, love, and truth. It is within each seeker's ability to so discipline the thoughts and the attitudes that, more and more, there is an increased potential for returning to a centered position of heart and mind, within which a true simplification of the improving of the centered stance is achieved. In pursuing the uplifting of desires, we need to be aware of the pitfall of the overuse of the will. Hidden from the first glance amongst rightful desires lies the exercise of what we have sometimes called the will. Each surely has experienced that energy of willing something to be so or not to be so. The personal will can take a part in desire which distorts desire from natural and even functioning into skewed values and incorrect or incorrectly perceived ways of thinking and processing information. Now, we say that we have called this facility the will or the self-will. We might also call such distortion in natural desires the action of prideful will or simply pride. For pride over and above the natural feelings connected with desire is as the cancer which takes over natural cells and begins multiplying them without stint. We need to examine our desires for any hint of pride. Leave the good desires in place, but extrapolate that pride. That was one of my challenges when I began this handbook, to realize that all within these pages is elsewhere known, and that although I am authentically doing this work as a service to others, I am also doing this for myself, to create a way to share what I have thought about and come to feel is useful to share through my years of working with wanderers, myself among them. This is an expression of myself, and where the handbook never to be published or read by many, it would still be a satisfaction to me to have created this book. There is nothing for me to be proud of there, just a bit of ego action. Hopefully it will be an ego action of mine that also helps other people. I can hope for that. I just can't legislate it or take pride simply because I attempted to help. Pride is the most stubborn and wily of faults. So I encourage an exacting and unamused eye on the self and its motives until we begin to recognize that rascal, pride, and all its children, including justification, defense, and judgment. Those of QO suggest two very useful techniques for working on knowing more about our desires: neglecting them and polarizing them. There are two ways in which one may learn more about one's true desires. Firstly, one may refuse any thought concerning this choice for a limited period. This neglect allows the deep, unconscious roots of mind to express deeper wisdom. The other technique is to choose on one diurnal period to spend every free second exposing a positive choice. In the next diurnal period, one must then take every free moment exposing the wisdom of a negative choice. This overstimulation of the mind's duality, yes, no, yes, no, achieves the same inner quiet within. And again, a way is made for the wisdom deep within one to rise to the surface either through dreaming, a sudden feeling, or, as is more nearly the general case, a growing awareness, which soon amounts to certainty. That one particular choice is the appropriate one for the self at this crux. Lyara reports that journaling works best for her in looking at what she desires. If I am trying to reach clarity on an issue or question, I do not persist in my efforts when I am feeling such upheavals. Instead, I turn to writing, preferably with pen and paper rather than the computer. That slows me down enough to begin dialoguing with my own wisdom. I begin by simply writing about what I am feeling. Sometimes only a few sentences, sometimes whole pages. Those of Hatan suggest a combination of working with and resting back from desires. Welcome to the ocean of incarnational experience. Your maps are faulty. You must steer by hunch and hope. You shall not avoid that destiny which lies before you, that destiny which was chosen by you as the focus of an incarnational time and space. We encourage each to attempt always to move towards those goals one instinctively desires. We encourage each to attempt to improve and to control the life experience for comfort and for joy, for rest and peace and love. Yet also we encourage each to rest back in the virtue of that situation in which each finds him or herself. I cannot leave the subject without some reference to the rather perversive nature of work with desires. When the spiritual realm is pushed for use and function, paradoxes crop up immediately. Those of QO put this so well. Each time you are able to get to the bottom of desire, you will find that the base of that desire is the desire to cooperate faithfully and persistently with the desire that has brought you all which you have so far enjoyed. At the back end of that great long train of desires, you will find a little gay caboose that says, I surrender, not my will, but thine. Will calls forth surrender, desire calls forth no desire. To the one who has no arising desire, the universe is free. It is a gift, and every blade of grass, every ray of sunlight, every kind word, every gentle glance is a beauty and a truth. When you have no arising desires, you may feel the grass and the elements, the dance of the wind, the dance of fire, the dance of water, and the dance of earth. And the universe lies before you, infinitely complex, infinitely unified, at one with itself, at one with you, part of you, as you are a part of it. May we say that we do not expect many moving through third density to experience the state of no desire for longer than, say, a moment, an hour, or an afternoon. Times of feeling this peace indeed are gifts that come now and again. And while you were experiencing this peace, you wondered why you ever desired anything. As long as we are content with experiencing this effect for brief moments, we can recognize it and welcome it without puzzlement. These times are times of balance for us, little gaps wherein we feel free of the weight of desire. Those seekers who find use in studying after the Taoist and Buddhist ways are great fans of this state of no desire. Again, I encourage each seeker not to try to destroy desire so that rest is achieved, but to allow desires without being attached to them. Let them come and let them pass, watching the whole process with equanimity. Russell exposes this very well. It has long been estimated that 99% of the average person's thoughts and actions are judgmental. It takes a very strong individual to take action in spite of what their peers might say. The best method that I know of to avoid judgment is the Taoist way of acceptance. For example, it is neither hot nor cold, but simply 68 degrees. Consider the poor farmers whose horse got out of the corral and ran away. The neighbor said, "How unfortunate!" But the farmer said, "Such is life." A week later, the wild horse came back with 3 other stallions and a foal. The neighbor said, "How fortunate!" But the farmer said, "Such is life." One day, as the sun was breaking in one of the new stallions, he fell off and broke his leg. The neighbors said, "How unfortunate!" But the farmer said, "Such is life." The next day, the army came through town looking for conscripts and didn't take the son because he had a broken leg. The neighbors said, "How fortunate!" But the farmer said, "Such is life." If we just accept life as it unfolds without judging how good or bad it is, we would never be disappointed. It's a wonderful attitude to adopt, and remembering this little story and "such is life" can constitute a real asset when we feel overwhelmed in working with our desires.